I survived a car crash when I was 3. It was a miracle. But the psychic my parents hired claimed I carried a dark curse. If she touches anything brand new, it will claim her life, the psychic warned. My parents believed every single word. From that day on, I only wore Hailey's old clothes. I used her hand-me-down phones, and I even ate her leftover food. Even on Christmas Eve, I never dared to ask for a new present. For 20 years, I lived my life walking on eggshells. Until Hailey got a boyfriend. Not long after they started dating, he was diagnosed with a terminal illness. That very night, my parents pushed her leftover man onto me. Hailey doesn't want him anymore, so he's yours now. A second-hand man is perfect for a cursed girl like you. It'll keep you alive longer. So, wearing Hailey's old, yellowing prom dress, I went with Ethan to City Hall to register our marriage. While we were waiting in line, my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was an audio file from an unknown number. I tapped play. The next second, my mother's familiar voice echoed through my headphones. There is no curse. It was all a lie. Chloe is our biological daughter. It doesn't matter if she suffers a little. But Hailey grew up in an orphanage. She's sensitive. If we don't show her absolute favoritism, she might lose her way. I gripped my phone, my blood running ice cold. The so-called curse was never meant to protect me. It was a lie they crafted to ruin my life, all to keep their adopted daughter happy. I stood outside City Hall, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone. The audio finished playing. There was nothing but dead silence in my earbuds. All around me, happy newlyweds were laughing and kissing. My mother's voice kept playing on a loop in my head, overlapping painfully with reality. Chloe, what are you doing standing there? You're up next. I looked up. My mother, Sarah, was standing by the entrance, waving at me impatiently. Next to her stood Ethan, wearing a beanie to cover his thinning hair. He used to be Hailey's boyfriend, but the moment he got sick, he became mine overnight. I didn't even have a chance to argue. My parents were so used to giving me Hailey's leftovers, and that included her men. I'm not doing this, I said, pulling the earbuds out of my phone. I spoke clearly, emphasizing every word. I am not getting married. I turned around and walked away, the hem of my cheap dress dragging in the dirt. My mother bought this dress for Hailey's college theater performance years ago. Back then, I couldn't understand why Hailey got a custom-made dress just for a school play. Just like now, I couldn't understand why my parents had lied to me my entire life. Ethan called my name from behind, followed by my mother's furious shrieks. I blocked it all out. Only those taped words echoed in my ears. There is no curse. It was all a lie. We adopted Hailey. She's sensitive. We have to make her feel secure. As for Chloe, she'll understand when she's older. I walked down the street in that ragged wedding dress, tears streaming down my face. Passers-by looked at me like I was a crazy woman and steered clear. Honestly, maybe I was crazy. How could I have believed such a ridiculous lie for 20 whole years? I walked for a long time. I walked all the way from City Hall to the bridge on the south side of town. I tripped and fell, ripping a huge hole in the skirt. If Hailey saw this, she would definitely play the victim. Mom, does Chloe hate my old clothes that much? Look how she ruined it. And whenever Sarah heard Hailey complain, she would cry to me. She'd say she felt so guilty that she was sorry she gave birth to me just to make me suffer. I never knew what to say. I would just pick up Hailey's discarded clothes and put them on, or force her half-eaten food down my throat. The wind blew, and I realized my knee was scraped. Blood was trickling down my leg. I stopped at the middle of the bridge, gripping the cold metal railing, and looked down at the rushing river below. The water was murky and deep. For a second, I wanted to jump. For over 20 years, I had lived a lie. The hand-me-downs, the leftovers, and now, Hailey's dying boyfriend. Every single part of my life had been carefully calculated by my own parents. You carry a curse. You can't touch new things. Why do you need a birthday party? You're cursed. Your luck is terrible. Don't drag the rest of us down. It was all a lie. My biological parents had locked me in chains, making me believe it was God's will. But God didn't owe me anything. They did. My parents did. I crouched down by the railing and sobbed. A few strangers stopped to ask if I was okay, but I couldn't answer. Eventually, the police arrived, with my parents and Hailey trailing right behind them. The first thing my mother did was apologize to the onlookers. I'm so sorry, everyone. My daughter has always been a troublemaker. We don't know what to do with her anymore. Thank you for your help. I promise we'll discipline her when we get home. My father, David, grabbed my arm with a grip like iron, putting on a show of deep worry. Chloe, please just be good and come home with us. Hailey was crying too, her eyes red and teary. In her spotless white sundress, she looked like a fragile angel. Chloe, even if you hate me, you shouldn't run away. Mom and Dad were so worried. If you hate me that much, I'll leave. Just promise you'll take care of them for me. With just a few words, Hailey painted me as a lunatic. Looking at them, I felt a sudden urge to laugh. Growing up, the phrase I heard the most was, "Your luck is bad, so you have to listen to us." And I believed them. I had never worn a new piece of clothing or eaten a fresh meal. Even when I got my first period, I had to let Hailey open the pack of pads first, making them used before I was allowed to touch them. How did my life become such a joke? I'm not going back. What did you say? David hissed. In front of everyone, my hands shook as I pressed play on the audio recording. I was done running.
Dad, Mom.
I know the truth. I know you've been lying to me. I am not going back. My father's face darkened instantly. His nails dug into my skin. What truth? That's just someone trying to trick you. You're my daughter. Why would I hurt you? Before I could say another word, he dragged me toward the car. You've lost your mind. You'd rather believe some stranger's fake audio over your own parents. We raised you, and this is how you repay us? You ungrateful brat. I struggled, but my father slapped me across the face. The metallic taste of blood filled my mouth. You are my daughter. If I tell you to marry him, you marry him. They locked me in the storage room at the back of the house. The door was locked from the outside, and the window was nailed shut. The tiny room had only a twin cot and a cardboard box serving as a nightstand. The walls were covered in yellowed newspapers, decorated with the pencil drawings I'd made when I was a kid. 4 stick figures. Daddy, Mommy, sister, and me. I had lived in this room for 20 years. My mother's voice drifted through the door. The engagement party is tonight. Just cooperate, and everyone will have an easy time. Chloe, be good. Stop throwing tantrums. I said nothing. She slid a bowl of food through a small slot in the door. It was Hailey's lunch leftovers, some wilted lettuce and a half-eaten pork chop over rice. Even now, you're still feeding me Hailey's garbage? My entire body was trembling. Even now, they were stubbornly clinging to their lie. I suddenly remembered my 7th birthday. It was also Hailey's birthday. She wore a sparkling party hat and blew out the candles on a massive 3-tier cake. Everyone sang to her. My mother saw the longing in my eyes and patted my head. When it's your turn, I'll buy you a big cake too. But a month later, on my actual birthday, my mother simply handed me a bowl of cold, soggy noodles Hailey had left over from lunch. Hailey said she didn't want cake today. She wanted noodles, my mother said. Just eat this. And wash the dishes when you're done. I took the bowl and forced myself to smile, pretending it was the best thing I'd ever tasted. Because I knew that made my parents happy. And I would do anything to make them happy. That night, I couldn't sleep. The cot only had a thin blanket, another one of Hailey's old things. Her name was beautifully embroidered on the corner in gold thread. My mother had spent hours on it. I remembered last winter, when Hailey complained that her puffer jacket was getting old. Without a second thought, my mother Venmo'd her $500 for a new one. That same day, I came home from school with blue, shivering lips. My eyes locked onto Hailey's old jacket. My mother glared at me. Why do you always want Hailey's things? Do we not feed and clothe you? Stop being so greedy. The night grew colder. Through the thin door, I could hear my parents whispering in the hallway. What did the Shelby family say? They're rushing us. Ethan's condition is getting worse. His parents are desperate. They said the moment the marriage license is signed, they'll wire the $50,000. Good. Hailey wants to go to Europe for her graduation trip. That money will cover it perfectly. I clamped my hand over my mouth to stifle my sobs. So, they were selling me to a dying man just to fund Hailey's trip to Europe. My mother was silent for a moment before asking, how did she find out about the curse? Who sent her that recording? My father let out a cold snort. It's just an audio clip. Who can prove it's our voices? Just tell everyone it was AI generated. Who are our relatives going to believe? Us or her? My mother hummed in agreement, sounding relieved. Besides, my father muttered, his voice dropping, we trained Chloe well. She does whatever we tell her to do. She's just throwing a tantrum. Lock her up for 2 days, and she'll fall back in line. I clenched my fists in the dark. They were right. I was extremely well trained. I never asked for new things, I never talked back, and I never cried. I was like a dog that had been chained up for 20 years. Every time they pulled the leash, I fell in line. But not this time. This time, I was going to break the chain. The next morning, my mother brought me food. It was Hailey's leftover takeout from the night before, a few cold French fries and some half-eaten chicken wings. Seeing that I hadn't touched it, she frowned. Don't eat then. You're getting married today anyway. Once you're out of this house, you're not our problem anymore. My mother threw a dress at me, another one of Hailey's old outfits. There was a faded stain near the collar. I didn't move. She sneered. What? Still throwing a fit? All our relatives and friends are going to be there today. Don't you dare embarrass us. I looked up at my mother. She was wearing a brand new, elegant burgundy dress with delicate lace details. Her hair was perfectly styled. She looked more like the bride than I did. I didn't argue. I silently put on the stained dress. As I zipped it up, I remembered when I was 15. It was parent-teacher conference night. I had scored third in the entire district, and I desperately wanted my mother to go. But she had told me, Hailey has a piano recital that night. I can't make it. You can go by yourself, you know the way. That night, I was the only student whose parents didn't show up. Later, I found out Hailey's recital wasn't even that week. My mother had gotten the dates mixed up. Or maybe, she just didn't care enough to check. I wanted to ask her, in 20 years, you never showed up for me once. Why are you so eager to show up today? They brought me to the hotel. The banquet hall was packed with 10 tables of family and friends, all chatting and laughing. I was locked in a private dressing room. After a while, my mother came in to check on me. Seeing my bare face, her expression soured. You're going out like that? I smiled coldly. I thought I was cursed, Mom. What's the point of makeup? A flash of anger and hurt crossed her face. She grabbed a lipstick from her purse, pinched my chin hard, and smeared it across my lips. When we go out there, you smile. Do you hear me? I kept my mouth shut. Frustrated, she called my father in. David stormed in, clutching a heavy leather belt in his hand. He had used that belt on me countless times when I was a kid. The worst time was when Hailey lied and said I stole her chocolate. He had whipped me until my back bled. Afterward, my mother applied ointment to my cuts, crying and saying, Don't hate your father. He only does this because he loves you. Now, he loomed over me, gripping the belt. Keep your mouth shut out there. Understood. I let out a soft laugh. Mom, Dad. Am I really your biological daughter? My voice was dead calm. And Hailey was adopted from the orphanage, right? You didn't get us mixed up? My mother froze for a few seconds before snapping. You've gone completely crazy because of that fake recording. I told you it's fake. Someone is trying to ruin our family. Do you really think I can't recognize my own mother's voice? So, what if it is? My father barked. We raised you. We gave you life. If we tell you to marry, you marry. Stop being so damn ungrateful. So, you tortured me for 20 years just to please an outsider? Hailey is not an outsider, my mother screamed. I raised Hailey. She is closer to me than you ever were. Do you know how much she suffered in that orphanage? If I treated you better, she would feel left out. What if she went down a dark path because of that? So you chose to destroy me instead? Destroy you? How? Did we starve you? Are you dead? Are you paralyzed? How is that torture? My mother spoke with absolute conviction, completely righteous. You're just being dramatic. Let me tell you, Chloe, this is your destiny. You just have to accept it. The moment she finished speaking, muffled gasps and whispers erupted from the hallway outside. Suddenly, a relative burst through the door, holding her phone. Sarah, oh my God, you guys are on live stream. Everyone is watching. A slow smile spread across my face. I pull my phone out of my pocket, showing them the TikTok app. Dad, Mom, thank you for finally telling the truth. We are live. Now the whole world knows exactly how little my life means to you. The silence in the dressing room was so absolute, I could hear the hum of the hotel's air conditioning. My mother's face drained of all color, leaving her foundation looking like a cheap, chalky mask. She stared at the small screen of my phone, her eyes tracking the endless stream of comments scrolling upward at breakneck speed. OMG, call the police right now. Did he just threaten her with a belt? Human trafficking. They are selling her for $50K. What hotel is this? Someone find out. The viewer count in the top right corner had already surpassed 40,000. It had been running since they dragged me into this room. My father was the first to snap out of the paralysis. His face twisted into a mask of pure, unadulterated rage, the veins in his neck bulging against his tight collar. Give me that damn phone, he roared, lunging forward with the heavy leather belt raised high. I didn't cower. For the first time in my life, I didn't fold into myself to protect my head. I stepped sharply to the left. The heavy brass buckle of the belt slammed into the vanity mirror with a deafening crash, sending shards of glass raining down over my mother's expensive makeup palette. David, no. People are watching, my mother shrieked, finally realizing the gravity of the situation. She grabbed his arm, her manicured nails digging into his suit jacket. She turned to the camera, forcing a horrifying, trembling smile that looked more like a grimace. Everyone, please, this is a misunderstanding. My daughter she's mentally unwell. She's having an episode. We are a loving family. A loving family? I cut her off, my voice echoing through the cramped room. I turned the camera to fully capture the shattered mirror, the belt still clutched in my father's fist, and the faded, stained dress I was wearing next to my mother's brand new designer gown. You just admitted you locked me in a storage room. You admitted you tortured me to make your adopted daughter feel better. You told me it was my destiny to be sold to a dying man. Shut your mouth, you ungrateful bitch, my father spat, trying to shake my mother off. Before he could take another step toward me, the door was shoved wide open. It wasn't just the one relative who had warned them. A crowd of aunts, uncles, and cousins was spilling into the doorway, their expressions a mix of horror, confusion, and morbid curiosity. David, put the belt down, Uncle Arthur said, his voice trembling. He was my father's older brother, a man who usually turned a blind eye to our family dynamics. But this was too public to ignore. Put it down now. The front desk said people are calling the hotel. The police are on their way. This is none of your business, Arthur, my father barked, though he slowly lowered his arm. I didn't wait for them to regroup. I gripped my phone, the battery burning hot against my palm, and pushed past my father. My mother tried to grab my arm, but I violently yanked it away, leaving a scratch from her ring on my forearm. I made sure the camera caught the blood welling up. I walked out of the dressing room and straight down the hallway toward the main banquet hall. The heavy double doors were already cracked open. Inside, the chatter had died down to an uneasy murmur. As I pushed the doors open, hundreds of eyes locked onto me. The lavish decorations, the crystal chandeliers, the towers of champagne, the pristine white floral arrangements stood in grotesque contrast to my stained, second-hand dress and bruised face. Standing at the head table was Ethan, leaning heavily on a cane, looking frail and pale. Next to him were his parents, the Shelbys, dressed in ostentatious wealth. And right beside them, clutching a glass of sparkling cider, was Hailey. She looked perfect. Her hair was curled into immaculate ringlets, and her custom-made silk dress shimmered under the lights. She was the picture of innocence. When she saw me, her eyes darted nervously to the phone in my hand. She had clearly been watching the stream. Chloe, Hailey cried out, her voice dripping with fake, trembling concern. She rushed forward, stopping just a few feet away, knowing better than to get too close to the camera. What are you doing? Why are you ruining your own engagement party? Mom and Dad are just trying to give you a good life. Ethan loves you. I stopped in the middle of the dance floor. I panned the camera around the room, capturing the lavish setup, before locking it onto Hailey. A good life? I asked softly, though the microphone picked up every word. You mean your leftovers, Hailey? Like everything else in my life? Chloe, please, you're sick? Hailey stammered, tears springing to her eyes on command. It was a trick she had perfected since she was 8 years old. I know you resent me because I'm adopted, but I've always loved you like a real sister. Stop lying, I said, my voice eerily calm. The adrenaline had burned away my fear, leaving nothing but a cold, sharp clarity. You didn't want Ethan anymore because he's dying. So you complained to Mom. You cried that it was too hard for you. And what did they do? They forced me to take your place. They sold me to the Shelbys for $50,000 so you could go on a graduation trip to Europe. A collective gasp echoed through the banquet hall. That is a lie. Mrs. Shelby marched forward, her heavy diamond necklace catching the light. She pointed a manicured finger at me. You little tramp. We are taking you in out of the goodness of our hearts. My son needs a wife to care for him in his final days, and your parents agreed you were suited for the job. For $50,000, I repeated, turning the camera directly to her. Are you denying you offered my parents $50,000 the moment the marriage license is signed today? Mrs. Shelby's face flushed a deep, ugly red. She glanced around at the murmuring crowd. It was a dowry, a traditional gift to the family. There is nothing illegal about a dowry. In exchange for a bride who is being held against her will and beaten into compliance. I asked, pulling down the collar of my dress just enough to reveal the deep, purple bruising on my collarbone from where my father had dragged me the day before. Is that the tradition in your family, Mrs. Shelby? Buying hostages. Turn that off. Ethan croaked from the table, coughing violently into a napkin. Make her turn it off. She's embarrassing us. Embarrassing? I laughed, a harsh, jagged sound that tore at my throat. I've lived my entire life believing I was cursed. I ate garbage. I wore rags. I was terrified to touch anything new because my parents told me it would kill me. Also, this girl. I pointed the camera back at Hailey, who was now backing away, looking genuinely panicked, could feel like a princess. And you're worried about being embarrassed? Chloe, stop it. You're ruining everything, Hailey screamed, finally dropping the sweet, tearful act. Her face contorted into an ugly snarl. You're supposed to take him. You're the cursed one. You're nothing. I am nothing? I stepped toward her, and she flinched, stumbling backward in her expensive heels. I was top of my class while you barely graduated. I cleaned the house while you took piano lessons you never practiced for. The only reason you're standing there in that dress is because they broke me down to build you up. But the curse is fake, Hailey. And so are you. Police. Nobody move. The heavy doors at the back of the banquet hall banged open. Four police officers rushed in, their hands resting on their utility belts. The sheer volume of 911 calls from my live stream had evidently escalated the response. The room erupted into chaos. Relatives scrambled out of the way. Mrs. Shelby shrieked as an officer approached her. My parents burst out of the hallway just as the cops reached the dance floor. My father took one look at the uniforms and froze, the color completely draining from his face. My mother immediately burst into hysterical tears, rushing toward the officers. Officers, thank God, she cried, pointing a trembling finger at me. My daughter has lost her mind. She's hallucinating. She's causing a scene. She needs to be institutionalized. The lead officer, a tall woman with sharp eyes, stepped around my mother and looked directly at me. Then, she looked at the phone in my hand, which was still broadcasting to over 80,000 people. Are you Chloe? The officer asked. Yes, I said, my voice finally cracking. The moment I said it, the exhaustion of the last 24 hours crashed down on me. My knees trembled. We received hundreds of calls reporting an assault and a suspected human trafficking situation at this location, the officer said loudly, ensuring the entire room heard her. She glanced at the bruising on my chest, the scratch on my arm, and the dirty dress. Then she looked back at my parents. Who locked you in a room? They did, I said, pointing at David and Sarah. My father hit me with a belt. The audio of them admitting to it and the $50,000 transaction is saved on my phone. They were forcing me to marry him. I pointed to Ethan. This is absurd, David roared, trying to sound authoritative but failing miserably as another officer stepped into his personal space. She is my daughter. I have the right to discipline her. You don't have the right to hold an adult hostage and sell her, the male officer deadpanned, pulling handcuffs from his belt. David and Sarah, turn around and place your hands behind your back. What? No. You can't do this, my mother screamed, thrashing as the officer grabbed her wrists. Hailey, call our lawyer. Tell them she's lying. Hailey didn't move. She stood frozen by the champagne tower, her face pale, watching the people who had worshipped her entire life being placed in handcuffs. When my mother looked at her, pleading for help, Hailey actually took a step back, shaking her head. I didn't know anything about this, Hailey stammered, her voice loud enough for the police to hear. I thought Chloe wanted to marry Ethan. They never told me about the money. My mother stopped struggling, staring at Hailey in utter disbelief. The betrayal in Sarah's eyes was almost pathetic. She had sacrificed her own flesh and blood to protect this girl, and the moment the ship started sinking, Hailey threw her overboard without a second thought. Hailey, my mother whispered, her voice breaking. Don't look at me, Hailey snapped, her panic making her vicious. You guys are crazy. I'm the victim here. She's trying to ruin my reputation. I ended the live stream. I had captured everything I needed. The whole world had seen it. The evidence was immortalized on the internet forever. I handed my phone to the lead officer. Everything is on here. We got an ambulance waiting out back for you, Chloe, she said gently, her demeanor softening as she saw me swaying on my feet. Let's get you out of here. As I walked out of the banquet hall, guided by the officer, Ethan's mother was loudly arguing with the police, threatening to sue the precinct, while Ethan hacked violently into a napkin, completely ignored by everyone. My father was swearing loudly as he was marched out, and my mother was sobbing uncontrollably, screaming Hailey's name. But I didn't look back. For the first time in 20 years, I looked straight ahead. The hospital room smelled like bleach and sterile cotton. It was the best thing I had ever smelled. A nurse had cleaned the scrape on my knee and documented all my bruises for the police report. An investigator had come by to take my official statement, downloading the audio file and the live stream footage from my phone. They told me my parents were being held without bail, pending charges of false imprisonment, felony assault, and conspiracy to commit human trafficking. The Shelbys were also under investigation. "Here you go, sweetheart," an older nurse with kind eyes said, walking into the room carrying a folded hospital gown and a thick, blue fleece blanket. "The doctor said you can shower and change out of that dress. This blanket just came out of the warming closet. It's brand new." She placed the blanket at the foot of my bed and smiled before leaving the room to give me privacy. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the blue blanket. It was still wrapped in its clear plastic packaging, a small sticker reading "Factory Sealed" on the front. "If she touches anything brand new, it will claim her life." The psychic's warning, parroted by my mother thousands of times, echoed in my head. My chest tightened. A cold sweat broke out on my palms. Logically, rationally, I knew it was a lie. I had the recording. I had heard them admit it was a fabrication designed to keep me subjugated. But 20 years of psychological conditioning isn't erased in a single afternoon. My brain was screaming at me that if I touched that plastic, my heart would stop. I would drop dead on the linoleum floor. I looked at the disgusting, stained dress I was wearing. The fabric was scratchy, smelling faintly of mothballs and Hailey's old perfume. It was a physical manifestation of my invisible chains. My hands shook violently as I reached out. I hovered my fingers just an inch above the plastic. "Do it," I told myself. "If you die free." I slammed my hand down onto the plastic. I squeezed my eyes shut, bracing for a sudden pain, a heart attack, the ceiling to collapse. I held my breath until my lungs burned. 1 second, 5 seconds, 10 seconds. Nothing happened. The only sound was the steady, rhythmic beeping of my heart monitor. Slowly, I opened my eyes. I was still breathing. I tore open the plastic, the sharp, crisp sound echoing in the quiet room. I pulled out the blue fleece blanket. It was incredibly soft, radiating a gentle, comforting heat. I wrapped it around my shoulders, burying my face in the fresh, untouched fabric. It smelled like warm cotton and nothing else. It was mine. No one had worn it before me. No one had tainted it. It was completely, beautifully new. A sob tore from my throat. I fell back onto the hospital bed, wrapping the blanket tightly around myself, and cried. I cried for the little girl who ate cold, soggy noodles on her birthday. I cried for the teenager who froze in winter while her sister wore a $500 coat. I cried until my eyes swelled and my voice went hoarse, weeping out 20 years of poison. And when I finally stopped, I felt lighter than air. 6 months later, the crisp autumn wind whipped through my hair as I stepped out of the courthouse. I pulled the lapels of my camel-colored trench coat closer together. It was a cashmere blend. I bought it yesterday, with the tag still on, from a boutique downtown. It cost me half a paycheck from my new job as a data analyst, but it was worth every single penny. "Chloe, wait." I stopped on the concrete steps and turned. Hailey was running toward me, stumbling slightly in her scuffed ankle boots. She looked unrecognizable. Gone were the immaculate ringlets, the glowing skin, and the designer clothes. Her hair was frizzy and tied in a messy bun. She was wearing an oversized gray hoodie and cheap leggings. The dark circles under her eyes made her look 10 years older. Since our parents were arrested, their assets had been frozen to pay for legal fees and the civil lawsuit I had filed against them for 20 years of emotional and physical damages. Without the endless flow of my parents' money, Hailey had been forced to face reality. She had been evicted from her luxury apartment because she couldn't pay the rent. She had no job experience, no marketable skills, and worst of all, no one left to manipulate. The internet had immortalized her as the greedy, spoiled villain of my live stream, making her a pariah. She stopped a few feet away from me, panting, looking at my new coat and the leather briefcase in my hand. Envy flashed in her eyes, sharp and bitter, before she forced it down and tried to put on a pitiful expression. "Chloe, please," she begged, her voice trembling. "I have nowhere to go. The shelter is terrible. I can't live like this. We're sisters, remember? I know you got a settlement from Ethan's parents."
I ser det her.
The Shelbys had indeed settled out of court to avoid prison time, paying me a massive sum for their role in the attempted trafficking. Ethan had passed away a month ago, and his parents had practically fled the state in disgrace. "I don't have a sister," I said simply. "How can you be so cold?" Hailey cried, genuine tears of frustration spilling down her cheeks. "Mom and Dad are going to prison. I have nothing. I'm wearing clothes I bought from a thrift store, Chloe. A thrift store. Do you know how humiliating that is? A slow, genuine smile spread across my face. I looked her up and down, taking in the faded gray hoodie and the worn-out shoes. I think it suits you, I said. Secondhand things are perfect for someone like you. It builds character. Hailey's face twisted in fury. She took a step toward me, raising her hand as if she was going to slap me. Don't, I warned, my voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. I am not the girl in the storage room anymore. You touch me, and I will have you arrested before your hand drops. You are nothing to me, Hailey. You are just a ghost from a house that burned down. Her hand trembled in midair, but she didn't strike. She slowly lowered it, defeated, her shoulders slumping. She looked small, pathetic. I turned my back on her and walked down the steps toward the bustling city street. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. It was a text from my lawyer. The judge just finalized the sentencing. David got 7 years. Sarah got 5. The restraining orders are permanent. I read the message twice, letting the words sink into my bones. 7 years. 5 years.
Permanent.
I locked the screen and slipped the phone back into my pocket. Above me, the sky was a brilliant, cloudless blue. The city was alive with the sound of honking cars, chatter, and the smell of roasting nuts from a nearby street vendor. I walked over to the vendor and bought a fresh, hot pretzel. I took a bite. It burned my tongue slightly, the salt and warm dough tasting like absolute heaven. I didn't have to wait for anyone to take the first bite. I didn't have to ask permission to exist. I stepped into the flow of the pedestrian traffic, becoming just another face in the crowd. I didn't have a curse. I didn't have bad luck. For the first time in 20 years, I had a future, and it was entirely wonderfully mine. And every single piece of it was brand new.